There's a lot of websites giving bad or outdated info on the vehicles, and most videos want to make a whole song and dance out of sharing information, so I made this just to get to the point. This isn't a tier list of the overall value of a star because there's too many variables. This is straight statistics of how a star performs and what you should do with a star in City Trial and its events. It's not very informative to say something as high lift because gliding interacts with weight, top speed, and boost, so I just tested each vehicle's performance individually. I compiled the information I've gathered from testing in a Google spreadsheet, and I've linked that in the description. I can't guarantee this whole video will be accurate after major balance patches, but this is still an accurate guide on how vehicles work and how you should progress through a city trial game. Before I break down what each vehicle does, these are the rankings for each star based on the state of the game and the performance at default stats for each major event. The first one is the most opinionated list I have, but this is generally the stars you should look out for based on the state of the game. Generalists are stars which are both useful early game and can be brought into an event reliably, as they do not have any extremely problematic stats. Next, I have early game and end game stars. Early and end game is less about the time spent in city trial and more when you reach a point where you and other people are no longer struggling from a star's more problematic stats. End game can be anywhere from 30 seconds to 4 minutes. It's not based on time. Early game stars are generally speedy and they have good control and either are difficult for other players to catch in the early game or they can win early game fights pretty easy. These vehicles can still be brought into events if you don't have any risk of being attacked or you know what the event's going to be. Endgame stars have extremely problematic flaws, namely acceleration and turning that make it too difficult to gather or fight reliably without stat investments. Lastly are the utility and gliding stars. This is a subset of the gathering stars. They uniquely can focus on reaching difficult locations like the garden in the sky or the bonus rings, and they can also avoid combat by just being in the air. However, these stars are universally very fragile. Next are the stars that are viable for fights, and this includes either city trial encounters or the combat events. This also gives you a good idea of which vehicles should try to find the crystal caves in city trial mode just to farm stats, because you can break those. Vehicles that should fight generally can't do much else, either because they don't perform well at non-combat events or they're too slow and cumbersome to patrol. Vehicles that can fight are less extreme, and while they can bully other vehicles, they're going to struggle with vehicles in the should fight category. The other categories are self-explanatory. Here, these are the general top speeds for each star. I use the term general as it doesn't include boosting or acceleration, and some stars are faster while gliding and can maintain a glide during the event with enough stats. I adjusted the rankings of the Jet Star, the Wing Star, the Shadow Star, the Paper Star, and the Hop Star with this in mind by averaging their ground speed with their airspeed. Speaking of which, these are the stars which benefit from gliding over staying on the ground. This ranking is a little more flawed, but I called this the grounded boost value, or how much value a star receives from boosts. And boosts are boost pads, charge boosting, and landing. I attained these values by completing Drag Race 1 with and without boosts and factoring in the star's top speeds. Assuming the developers fixed the bug in the original where collecting boost patches reduced your speed gain from boost pads, this can also be seen as how much value a star gains from a high number of boost patches. This is the Air Glider rankings. You can use this as a general reference for whether or not a star is able to gather patches during the trial phase via gliding. Lastly, these are the rankings for the high jump event. This was collected by just holding the stick down with proper timing. The Battle Chariot. This thing is like a diet version of the Rex Wheelie. It has high offense but can't turn and has the better ability to ram vehicles. This is a fantastic vehicle in the early game as it very easily destroys boxes, and you should also look to fight players while you have it, especially if it's one of the first stars you find. The only problem is once again, it's very difficult to stop and it's very difficult to turn. The Bulk Star. This thing used to be really bad in the original, but it's much better here. It has a lot of health and it has a very high top speed, and it's the only vehicle besides the Hydra that needs to charge to move. It starts losing speed when its tank is past the halfway mark in its gauge, which is visible by the line right here. For some reason, it's also kinda okay at gliding, which I suppose was technically true in the first game. The Bull Tank is the first of the tank-style vehicles that can shift direction regardless of its inertia if you do a drift boost. I really like this thing. Since weight is tied to inertia, the fact it has a mechanic that completely ignores inertia makes the Bull Tank a very strong pick. You want to get turn patches with this because it also influences how quickly you can shift direction during a drift boost. The Bullthing has a ton of weight and a ton of top speed, so it's very easy to bully people. The big struggles it has is that it has very bad acceleration and it doesn't turn very well, which is what makes it an endgame vehicle. You can very easily ram people with this, and you do have a ton of health, and it's very strong during racing events, but obviously you're not going to be flying anywhere. The Chariot is a favorite for a lot of people. It turns fast, it has decent offense, it has good defense, so it would be a good enough early game vehicle. The biggest problems is that it doesn't glide, and it's also one of the slowest vehicles in the game, so I would actually call this a bit of a crutch. But it still works decently well for endgame combat because of how easy it is to control. Formula Star. This is a returning vehicle and it functions mostly the same. Like a real-life Formula vehicle, it can't turn very well, but it has the highest top speed in the game with a very bad acceleration. It also does not turn very well, and turn and acceleration are the two most valuable stats in the gathering phase, so the Formula Star is only good in the endgame. It's also one of the few vehicles that goes slower if you're airborne, so you do want to avoid ramps with this thing. Its speed is so fast that you can usually take any form of race, even if there's a turn though, because you can just bash your face into the wall. But you fail pretty much any other event type otherwise. The Hop Star. I see a lot of people ask, what does the Hop Star do? To which I say, are you stupid? It hops. It's a very odd vehicle with a niche playstyle that's kind of like the Rocket Star or the Bulk Star, where it has its own gimmick that you need to abuse to get any value out of it. The Hop Star's spin attack lets it go airborne, and you can charge to slam on the floor for damage, which lets you avoid spin attacks while timing one of your own. It also makes breaking boxes a lot easier. The Hop Star is weird because it goes a lot faster when it's in the air, so it's hard to say if it has any value just hopping in flat ground to go forward, but it definitely does if you're on any kind of downwards incline. It's a great generalist star, and I personally think it looks like a maxi pad. The Jet Star. I don't like this. I think this is made more for air ride than it is city trial. It's very fragile, it's very slow on the ground, and when you're in the air, it goes about the same speed as a Wing Star, but not as long. Its main benefit is that it has really good air control and ground control, and it benefits a lot from boosts, but despite what you might think, it's actually very bad for gliding events and is the worst out of the gliding vehicles for gliding. It flies about as far as the Bulk Star, so you benefit a lot from going off tiny ramps more than anything, and you absolutely cannot fight, so this really limits your available options. The Paper Star. This is a favorite for a lot of people, and it's the most extreme of the gliding type vehicles. You have the best air control in the game, and its gliding is only beat by the Wing Star. It's also hilarious at high stats because you can just zoom around the map without anyone being able to hit you. For normal races, even though the Wing Star is faster, the Paper Star tends to perform better because it can actually take a turn. However, you will die if you get hit, so try not to. In the trial phase, you get the most value out of staying in the air since people can't hit you up there. The Rex Wheelie. I love this thing, but it is an endgame vehicle in every sense of the word. It has the highest offense stat in the game, but it's also very heavy, and it can't turn, meaning that not only can you not change direction, it has so much inertia that you can't even come to a full stop without struggling. Using this without high boost and a high turn stat is pure suffering, and you'll need to abuse holding down the brake in order to get anything done. The game also boasts that it has high top speed for some reason, which is true. It caps out at 37 miles per hour, which is above average, but its acceleration is terrible. If you grab this endgame though, you will pretty consistently one-shot most people. The Rocket Star. It is in a weird place compared to the original game because it feels a lot nicer to use when you're not boosting, but the boost itself does not feel as good. Maybe it's just me. It is a fantastic generalist star, especially since the boost lets you break boxes a lot faster, and it's one of the few stars that benefits a lot from a high charge stat. There's some tech with the Rocket Star with doing partial charge boosts, but I don't have the patience for it. But speedrunners use this thing all the time, so you know, there must be some value to it. Its other stats are pretty average, so it can hold its own in most non-racing events. It also has the highest rail speed in the game, for some reason. The Shadow Star. This is a glass cannon in every sense of the word. People will treat this star like an addiction. They will pick it over and over again due to the high highs of nuking enemy player and the low lows of yourself also being able to get nuked. It has around the same offense stats as the heaviest hitters in the game, but it also has one of the lowest health stats in the game. If it wasn't for its health pool, it would also make a fantastic generalist star, because it has very good glide. In fact, its speed skyrockets when it's in the air and otherwise has the actual slowest ground speed in the game. So boost pads and a high charge and high boost stat are pretty valuable on this thing. The Slick Star, this is the skill issue vehicle. This has horrible traction and you can lightly tap the A button to turn without losing too much speed. Its stats are pretty busted to balance the fact it's hard to control, since it has some of the best glide in the game, it has some of the highest acceleration, and it benefits a ton from boosts in the boost stats. However, its top speed is below average, and it has absolutely no health, so it's mostly good for early game gathering or if you know there's a glide event. The Swerve Star, this was my favorite in the original game, not so much here. It doesn't turn well while it's moving, but it gets better turn when charging a drift boost. Don't let the name fool you, because this is a tank-style vehicle. It reaches top speed instantly, which is higher than average. It has infinite traction and stops immediately, and is pretty passable at gliding, although not great. However, it is extremely fragile, it is extremely light, so it's difficult to notice any stat boosts on it since weight is tied pretty much to everything for no reason. You absolutely want this in the early game since it min-maxes all of the stats you want for breaking boxes and gathering, which is turn, acceleration, and top speed, but if you hold on to this beyond that point, you will get dumpstered by some idiot just sideswiping you with a Rex Wheelie. In the original game, it also turned a lot faster. It turns a lot slower here, so the Swerve Star is one of the many stars that benefits from a high turn stat. The Transform Star, this changes from a bike to a star from a spin attack. If you just want the quick answer, the bike form is universally better in all aspects, including the speed boosts you get from going off ramps. You would expect it to be like a top tier pick since it can handle anything, but it actually is just kinda okay at everything. It is okay at gliding in its star form, and its top speed in bike form is as average as it can possibly be, but it performs pretty decently in combat. The best way I can describe the Transform Star is a pretentious Dwarf Star, because you are doing a lot of extra work for roughly the same effect. When it's in its bike form, it turns a lot easier and is a lot faster, and I would say its bike form is its most useful form, as its star form is a lot slower and it doesn't handle as well. As you'd expect, it is a good generalist star, especially if you have no idea what the event will be. The Turbo Star, if you came here looking for all the answers as to what this thing does, prepare to be underwhelmed. It is bad at gliding, it has the exact average top speed across all vehicles in the game, it is decently tanky, but it does not have a high offense stat, and it charges its boost very slowly unless you're returning. It has a unique mechanic where if you overturn, it will spin out rather than lose speed, but you can circumvent this by just tapping the A button like the Slick Star. This thing's main benefit is that it gets a very sizable burst of speed from a boost, like a Rocket Star, except for boosts of all kinds. If this sounds very niche and uncommon, that is because it is. Unfortunately, it is very useless early game because it has a bad charge stat and it is hard to control. The Vampire Star gets a buff when you bite enemies with its front-facing auto attack, from which point it will turn red and leave a trail of blood behind it. There seems to be a 5-second grace period at the start of events where the Vampire Star is unable to bite anyone, so plan accordingly. The Vampire Star is something you'd expect to be good at combat, but it is surprisingly only okay. The auto attack seems to do okay damage, but it seems to interfere with the auto attacks of characters and some abilities, so you'll need to pick your fights. It is decently tanky, it has a respectable offense stat, and its gimmick of biting enemies for stat boosts is okay, but it only boosts your ground speed from very below average to a whopping 1 mile per hour over the average, also known as more than a tank star, less than a Swerve Star. Also, for some reason, it is faster to glide with a Vampire Star unless you have the buff. If you do have the buff, your glide is still faster than before, but for some reason it is slower than your buffed ground speed. I don't know why. Lastly, the Vampire Star has good glide stats, so all in all, it is a very decent generalist star. The Wagon Star, this is the poster child of top tier bait. This is a generalist star, it cannot charge, it is average in every sense of the word except for how tanky it is. That is it. If you want a star that is a safe pick for everything and you just want to turn your brain off, you pick this. The Warp Star, you would expect the Jack of all trades vehicle to be one of the worst, as is standard for most games, but the Warp Star is less of a master of none and more of a master of everything. It has one of the best glides in the game, its speed is just a little below average, its health is decently high, its combat stats aren't too bad, and it gets a high amount of extra speed from any form of boost, and it handles really nice. You can hop on a Warp Star at any point of the game and do well with it, so don't feel like you're making any kind of compromise when you're using it. The Wheelie Bike, it is the status quo of all bikes, so it shares the qualities every bike has to some degree. It turns well, it's good at combat, it has decent speed, it gets a lot of speed from going off ramps, and it can glide. It is basically the Warp Star of bikes. The Wheelie Scooter has had a tragic fall from grace ever since the original game. It had a bug that made it the highest jumping vehicle in the game. It is now one of the lowest jumping vehicles in the game, but it also has one of the highest air speeds when going off ramps. I guess that's the compromise. Its biggest benefit is that it has amazing turn. This makes its speed a little deceptive, as it's better at races than most people would expect because of how tight you can take certain turns. What makes the Wheelie Scooter fall apart is what literally makes it fall apart, as it has some of the worst health and offense stats in the game. It's only good for racing events and gatherings, so it's really powerful but fragile as a early game vehicle. The Wing Star, many people think this is one of the worst vehicles in the game, and for very good reason. The Wing Star exists for gliding events. It has the highest glide height and the farthest glide distance, and it gains very high speed in the air. And then come the downsides. It turns really bad, it has the slowest ground speeds in the game, it has poor air maneuverability, and is incredibly fragile. Unless you know the racing event has a lot of ramps, you will lose anything that isn't a glide event. On the flip side, the Star is extremely valuable in the trial phase because it's very easy to reach the garden in the sky.